The taper flu is in full effect and the struggle is freaking real. I'm coming off of about 3 months of hitting 80 to 100 mile weeks, and I've been being really consistent with my speed training, doing about 2 to 3 sessions every single week. So my body was really ready to hit this taper. But once again, I'm starting to feel like full bag. I had tendon flare-ups, muscle pain, a general feeling of just being completely worn out. I had a lingering cough that seemed to get worse and worse as I progressed into the taper. It only took about 2 to 3 days into the taper where my body just started feeling like it was breaking down. I started thinking to myself, I trained so hard for these past 3 months. For what? Just to end up feeling like this? Well, I had to remind myself again, and I have to remind myself almost every single time I taper, that this is completely normal. Now, the taper is going to affect everybody just based on genetics, their training history, and everybody deals with stuff a little bit differently. It's just whenever I have a really big training block, I end up feeling like shit when I taper. So I have to remind myself, hey, this is normal. Don't go cry yourself to sleep and be self-indulgent and eat 7,000 calories of feel-good donuts and get a tasty McDonald's because woe is me and I've been working so hard. Now I feel like poo-poo. No. It is completely normal, and it's just your body trying to bounce back and absorb all the training that you did so you can properly peak for your race. So there are 3 big things that I have to keep in mind during my taper to keep me on track and to get to my next event as rebuilt, as recovered, and as peaked as possible for the actual event that I've been training so hard for. So let's jump right into it with number 1, maintain the schedule.
Number 1 thing is to stick to your schedule. So if you think about it as food, you got done cooking, you're gonna put yourself in the warming plate. You're not gonna put yourself in the freezer or in the fridge to completely cool down and get back into 100% recovery. You're just keeping warm until the main event. So it's so important to stick to your schedule, kind of go with the same cadence that you were as you're peaking and building up, but dramatically lower the mileage. So about 3 weeks out, I drop it by 20%, and then 2 weeks out, about 40%, and then the week before the race, it gets dramatically lowered. But I still keep moving, and still keep everything sharpened. And I did that many times before, heading up into my other 500 miler, where I was like, oh man, I'm so destroyed. I'm just gonna take 2 weeks off, or like barely even run for the 2 weeks leading up to the 100 miler. And when I started the 100 miler, I was completely locked up. My knees were swollen. Everything just started going into basically deep freeze. And that was a huge mistake. So, give your body what it wants. Give your body what it's used to. You did all that buildup. Your body with a lower volume is gonna start healing itself. Just remember, once again, motion is lotion. Keep everything primed, keep everything going. Even if you have a couple things that are a little tight, but you're not feeling a little bit right, it's just the taper just messing with you. So keep moving, keep everything primed, and your body on race day will very, very appreciate it.
All right, the number 2 thing that I always have to remind myself is nutrition and hydration. And I've been talking a lot about this on my channel, and it's probably just because I'm trying to reinforce it and trying to place it into my system more than like I'm actually giving advice, just because I struggle with this a lot. And I've been fighting with this lately because my fatty little brain, it just wants carbs, like really bad carbs, like candy carbs. and to sleep. Just eat a bunch of candy, eat a bunch of McDonald's as much as possible, and fall asleep, because your primordial brain, or your little animal brain, it's just looking for excess energy because it's trying to absorb all your training. So you're just craving everything. But I have to remind myself, don't give in. Of course, I'm going to be feeding my body as much as possible, but I'm trying to do it with as healthy as food as possible. So I have those good building blocks to start repairing everything and make sure that I don't have explosive diarrhea coming into the race because I went on a freaking binge and got my classic McDonald's order, which is a Big Mac, large fry, large frozen Coke, and a 10-piece chicken nugget every single day leading up to a 50-miler. That is a mistake. It's delicious. It's terrible, but I just try to make sure that I limit the amount of fast food leading up to the race and into my tapers. So then I have those good building blocks and fuel to start recovering my body. And then I'll also carry that nutrition into the actual race. And there won't be as much GI stress or that much fueling problems leading into the race if you're eating a lot healthier. If I'm eating a lot healthier and not just giving in to my fatty freaking brain, because man, I can destroy some candy, I can destroy some slushies and some McDonald's. But mostly what I'll end up doing is keeping it as simple as possible and go towards foods that I know is safe or like easily digestible for my system that I know my body likes. And that's just a lot of white rice, a lot of chicken breast, and a lot of fruit. Those are the three things that I really lean towards leading into races. And it gets a little bit boring, but it makes me feel the best and most optimal as possible leading into big races and afterwards, which will be on a different video, for recovery. The first time I ran this stupid 50-miler, I went and got all you can eat Korean barbecue, which was 100 pounds of freaking grease, and I just destroyed as much meat as possible. And I had the meat sweats the first 5 miles. I completely sweated out everything because I had so much excess just sodium and no other electrolytes in my system. All the grease just freaking expressed. I had to jump off the trail, go into a campground, find their bathroom, and destroy it for like 30 minutes, 2 or 3 times. And I was just, that was a terrible idea. So eat as clean as possible and really focus on rebuilding and refueling your body when you're thinking about nutrition and hydration leading up to your race and during your taper. Moving on to number 3, and that is gear and race final checks. Now that your mileage volume is going to be lowered because you're starting to taper, you're running a lot less mileage, you have the time that you can start looking and tweaking at your gear. You don't want to make big changes because you're not going to be able to test them out on big long runs, but on that last simulation run where you should have been wearing every single piece of gear that you're going to be running with on the race, that's when you can start doing your tweaks. Like when I did my 26-mile simulation run, I noticed that I had a couple rubbing points, and it was just because how I put the weight in the actual pack. So now during these weeks, I'm messing around with it, seeing if I can add extra padding or if I need to distribute the weight within the vest a little bit differently, and testing it out on the taper runs that I'm actually doing. So yeah, I'm still going to be running. So during the taper, I still ran like a 17-mile long run and a 13-mile long run. So I was able to reconfirm that the gear is good to go, making sure that everything is locked into place. And then you can start looking at the actual course and what you need to do during the actual race day. So that's making sure that you understand where the aid stations are, where you're going to have crew access if you will have a crew, how you're going to set up your drop bags, and what you're actually going to be putting in your drop bags, and then downloading and understanding the actual GPS file. Make sure that you don't do like I did and wait till the night before and start packing up your freaking drop bags and having to run to Walmart 3 or 4 times during the night and having all that extra stress on you before the actual race. Try to get everything set in place the week before. So the night before your actual race, or 2 nights before your actual race, so you can only focus on getting sleep and getting good rest, and everything else is taken care of. The night before, of course, you do your double checks, but it should just be a double check. Basically, I have all my gear a week out coming in the mail. And then right when it gets here, I'm going to do a proper layout for everything that I need for my drop bag. And I'm just going to basically put it in there, zip it up, and then leave it somewhere where my 2 girls won't get at it and throw all the shit all around the house. Just make sure that it's all set up. And then the night before, I can double check, throw in anything that I need extra in there that might have popped in my head. And that goes with everything, including the kit that I'm actually going to be wearing during the day. So I'll typically get like a big gallon Ziploc bag, and I'll put in all the nutrition and all the gear that I actually need in that vest that for the race, and I'll zip it up. I'll put it right next to the drop bag. So once the day of the race actually comes, or the day before, I can just grab that bag, put on my vest, load it all up, do a final check, and I'll have it ready for that race start with no extra stress, no looking around, scrounging for extra batteries or any bullshit like that. I already took care of that a week ago, and everything was already set, and all I need to do is focus on getting to the start line and getting the race done. So with that, the taper flu is real. Well, at least for me, it's really freaking real. But you can fight it with proper planning and acceptance that, hey, your body's just going through some shit. So you're going to have to baby it a little bit. You're going to have to feed it properly a little bit. And you're going to have to go through a little bit extra steps to make sure that you're not going into a race full of stress and ill prepared and not properly peaked from all that freaking hard training that you put in the 3 months or 4 months that you've done leading up to that 50 miler. So a lot of times I just have to remind myself to approach the taper exactly how I approach the buildup and the training plan that I was just doing. It's for a reason. I can do it tactically, and there's steps to it. And I just have to make sure that I'm following that plan as stringently as I was following my training plan, because it's just as important. So let's get through this taper and kick this 50 miler square in its freaking nuts. As always, chip away, run towards fear, become an average savage. Let's go. Let's get out there and let's fucking do it. Let's go.